Hi everyone and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really happy to be joined by Andrew and Phil, who are the co-founders of Spoken. So thank you for joining the show, Andrew and Phil.
It's good to be here, Teddy.
Nice to see you again, Teddy.
It was great to meet you both at Author Nation. How did you find the show?
Author Nation was a really special time for us. We came in strong with what we thought was a good idea for Spoken and shopped it around, but really invested a lot of energy in learning and getting close to the experience. And we came away with a lot more insight that has really helped us to sort of upend some of our beliefs around how we think Spoken should operate. And really just get a feel for the entrepreneurial spirit that lives across all of these self-publishing experts out there as they sort of manage their domains. So it was a very positive experience for us.
Yeah. Your stand was really busy the whole time. So yeah, you must have been meeting so many people. It was amazing. I got loads out of it, meeting all the different authors, meeting all the different people. It's the first time I've gone. I'm definitely going to try and go back this year, I think. Yeah, so why don't you give us
I said, we'll see you there.
So why don't you give us a bit of an overview of exactly what Spoken is? Because it's slightly different to everything else that's around at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It is quite a bit different. It's been interesting to watch people get their minds kind of wrapped around what it is that we're bringing to the market. Actually, they say, "Well, you're like this," and we're like, "No, not quite." And you're like this. No, it's not. It's kind of both of those things. So, yeah. So a little bit of background, which might sort of help provide some context. Andrew and I and our third co-founder, we actually were in healthcare technology. We had the top conversational AI system in healthcare that automated conversations between doctors and their patients, and called Conversa. And we sold that company in 2021. And I turned my attention towards finishing my sci-fi novel. And so as a sci-fi writer, as a new sci-fi writer, I went to workshops. I met lots of people. I learned a lot of things, but I'm also an audio only reader. And as an audio only reader, I'm very focused on how my writing and how everybody else's writing comes out in audio. And as a technologist, those things combined to just make me a fanatic for how technology can help writers to not just generate the audio of their works using some of the technical tools we have now, but to be able to actually publish, stream, socialize, and even monetize that work. And so that's really kind of how Spoken began. I tried to narrate particular story that I have called Kill Your Darlings. And I had some workshop colleagues that were very encouraging of how technology could have helped me. And then once I actually had the end result, I tried to figure out where to put it. And Audible wasn't the right place for a 40-minute listen. And I had used AI narration, so they wouldn't accept that. And so, and then podcasts are a fine outlet, but it's not exactly monetizable. And so what ended with all that was me going to Andrew and our third co-founder, our technologist, and saying, this is my idea for Spoken. And so what was born at that point was the amalgam of two things. Yeah. The ability to generate really high quality narration with the streaming and sharing and monetization. And with this most recent release, which happened just this last Monday, we went from being able to publish or to generate in real time short form or installment chapter by chapter in a serial way, to being able to sit down and upload and narrate an entire novel in one sitting. And that's the first time that in human history, we like to say, that has ever been possible. And we'll come back around to some of the other things that we did that were also firsts in the market. But that's a little bit of the background on all of this, the ability to in a DIY fashion in a single sitting, be able to generate great audio, and then also be able to stream and monetize.
So the first part of the business is essentially using AI to be your narrator for your books. How how do you choose like who's going to be the narrator of the book? Is it a real person or is it just literally complete AI?
Yeah, so let me tell you all the options, because it really comes down to what the author's preference is. If they invested in studio recordings, and used voice actors, which is the gold standard, and as far as we're concerned, it's going to be the gold standard for a long time. Then you can upload that audio work to spoken so that you can leverage the other aspect of it, which is the streaming and the monetization.
Yeah.
However, if you want to use the technology to help generate great audio, which you can do not just in single narrator, but we specialize in what we call multi-character, multi-voice, multicast narration, then our library of almost 300 voices is almost all voice actors. So while you are using their voices on AI models, they do get paid for every use of that. But now we also have a new option that if you can't find the exact right voice in our voice actor library, we will actually take the in-depth analysis that we automatically generate of every character, including the narrator, and we will generate a custom voice designed just for your character and exclusive to you as the author. And you can actually pace through. It's funny. It's a little bit like Tinder swipe right if you don't like those voices, right? And so I guess swiping right is if you did like the voice, right, is what the analogy should be. So ignore the Tinder analogy, you can just regenerate three after three after three samples until you find just the right one.
Yeah.
And so this new custom voice design capability adds a whole new dimension. And so, yeah, when it comes to how do you choose the right voice, there are a lot of great options, both for single narrator as well as for the multicast approach.
Right. Okay. So when I'm just when you create these voices with the AI, what happens if I guess you've got to then go back and listen to it. What happens if you find a bit that you don't particularly like? Is it easy to go and say, oh, that bit's not really working for me?
Well, yeah, you got to get what you like, right? And here's the
Yeah.
funny thing about it. If an author is going to use technology to be able to sit down quickly, easily, effectively narrate their work, they don't want to have to spend a lot of time proofing that work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still important right now to go and listen to it, make sure everything came out okay. But we do a couple of things to help with that. One is the lexicon. So if there are certain words, as a speculative fiction writer myself, I can tell you I come up with all sorts of crazy shit that you cannot pronounce. Okay, like alien sounds and cultures, and and so with the lexicon, you can just put in the phonetic pronunciation of that once, and every time we see that phrase, then we'll replace it with that phonetic pronunciation. The other thing that we have, which is pretty remarkable, people flip out over this, and for good reason, and that is our Speak It feature. So for any passage that has to be delivered in a certain way, whether it's for pronunciation, but more oftentimes for inflection, for the emotive delivery of a particular passage, you can just click the microphone icon, speak it exactly the way you want it to come out, and we'll loop it through the character voice, and it will come out exactly as you spoke it.
Wow.
And that's called our Speak It functionality. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's absolutely incredible. And so for people who want to get books written or narrated in this way, is it free to start getting started, or do you have a charge in order to get the book written? How does that sort of payment structure work?
So for the time being, the beta of Spoken is entirely free. We're looking at a sort of late spring, early spring, mid-spring launch of V1, which is where we'll start to introduce some of the monetization features. And at that point, we'll set up cost narration. So you'll be paying what you would pay anywhere else from market-leading voice technology company 11 Labs or potentially others. But for the time being during this beta experience, everything is entirely free. And you'll be able to carry the work that you create today forward after we start to introduce some of those monetization models. So all you have to do is go to spoken.press and join our beta there. I have spoken.press if you don't learn anything about us before you jump right in.
Great. So Phil, you've got your sci-fi books as well. Could you give us a couple of examples of how Spoken's worked for getting your narration to be just right?
Yeah. Well, in the early days when we launched the beta in July, it was a little tougher than it is now. So when I sat down to do Kill Your Darlings in 11 Labs originally, well before Spoken and part of the genesis of creating Spoken for the workflow aspect of it, what I had to do was I had to physically, because I wanted a multicast narration, I had to split my work between what the characters spoke and what the narrator spoke. And so that means splitting every dialogue tag out, et cetera, et cetera. And it's about a 40-minute work. And so that was a lot of work. And because the voices weren't quite right, I have an elderly Norwegian woman. I have a Russian man and his daughter. I actually hired, voice actors for those bits. But you can imagine the Final Cut Pro dashboard with every single spoken statement and every single narrator, dialogue tag broken out, and how many of those tiny little clips I had to line up, across this dashboard. I have a screenshot of it. It's just absolutely nuts. So that's part of what inspired creating a great, easy workflow where we automatically separate those works into who's speaking. We roll it up to the character once. You assign the voice once. You apply it once. And it just goes down through the entire work, including the entire novel, if that's what you've uploaded. Now, when we launched in July, that was still a task. I had to go in, and I probably had about 25% of the passages that I would have to speak it for just the right delivery. But just since then, 6 months? It has become so much better. And so now we apply mastering, where it normalizes the different voices, background sound. If you do single narrator, it just comes out. I mean, there's really very little that you have to do at all to make single narrator come out. But the amount of work that you have to do is getting lower and lower and lower. Being able to apply the voice once, right? And we automatically generate your summary, your comparables, the tags that will be used to discover the work on the network, what we call channel tags. We automatically analyze every chapter for safety ratings across 6 parameters. And so it comes down to what can we do in an automated fashion to help create the best listen possible. And all those things combined to be able to do that. I would say the most remarkable of them is rolling up all of the characters for single application of a voice across the entire work.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want to lose sight of the consequential nature of what happens after you create this asset. The other half of the entire spoken experience is this, what we envision will be a very engaging, sort of first of its kind social community where, we're analyzing the work to come up with channel tags, right? These sort of like micro genre meets social hashtag concepts, so that when your work is eventually published, it finds the right bookshelf for other authors and listeners that we bring into the network to find and discover. It's like an Instagram plus Spotify plus 11 Labs all smashed into one thing, where authors like, science fiction authors like Phil can build their brand on a sort of profile model and display all of their work and make it available in one place, and surface in the network in real time based on listener preference and taste. So there's a lot to the sort of social dynamic, in addition to the narration technology. Both sort of halves of the equation are there.
Yeah. What sort of have you had any conversations with people who are in the narration industry? People who are doing narration already, and what's their sort of take on it? Have people? I'm guessing there's been some kind of pushback from some people, and also some people are saying, let's embrace this technology and work with you to, be your partner and things like that.
Yeah, I'll share a story with you. So I was at the big speculative fiction conference, WorldCon in Glasgow, and I attended a podcasting roundtable. And the podcast roundtable was a big round table because it wasn't an actual table because there were like 30 people there. But I mentioned what I do, and and people definitely were skeptical, for sure. These were voices for podcasting, right? I mean, these were voice actors. These were people who make a living from that. And and in the end, it was a really interesting conversation because whether it's people who are doing podcasting or it's voice actors, there was a recognition that there's a gap in the market right now. That if you're an author with your printed work, your written word, you can DIY self-publish right now. You can prepare your manuscript, go to Kindle Direct, and upload to KDP. You can do that right now.
Yep.
And yet with audio, which has become enormously popular, and there are a lot of people that are now saying that audio consumption of works has eclipsed the traditional reading of those works, whether digital or in paper. And I think that may be true. Audio is huge, growing by 25% clip year over year.
Yep.
And so there was a recognition that that same DIY self-publishing capability, it just doesn't exist for authors. The work, the time, the money that an author has to go through to create a great audio work is a lot,
Yeah.
and yet we all recognize that studio recordings are the gold standard for it, and so it's just a matter of that balance of affordability, of quality, and so what we're doing now is bringing something to the market that, at least for authors, to actually find a new and reasonable economic model for their audio works. It's all a new opportunity, and so even with the voice actor community, there was a recognition that sort of economic model and that DIY nature of audio is changing.
Yeah, for sure. Would it be possible to narrate the book yourself if you wanted to, just upload your own voice?
Yeah, well, yes. Sit down with a microphone
Yeah.
and record your book. and so if you just sit down with a microphone and record every chapter, upload them to spoken, and then you'd be able to leverage the streaming and monetization model. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So yeah. just do it.
Definitely don't want to overlook the fact that, like I said earlier, there's the narration technology and then there's the network, the network and the monetization model. And if you're an authorpreneur and you're managing your domain of 8 different streaming platforms in addition to your print and e-reader distribution platforms, Spoken sits along nicely with a very disruptive revenue sharing option for authors if you've already narrated your work, right? Bring the gold standard to the network and just take advantage of the subscription and monetization opportunities that Spoken has. But, on the other side, use the tool if you need to narrate it, right? We really work to democratize access to audio for those who otherwise wouldn't have ever been able to get a toehold
Yeah.
in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Just before we move on to the network, I just wanted to give a couple of tips to people who are trying to get AI narration for their book. So have you got any tips for people to try and find their first narrator with your platform?
So one of the major sort of recent features that we just deployed it is actually sort of creating, based on the work that you bring to Spoken, based on the analysis of the narrative, of the genre that you're in, and then each specific character, if it's narrative prose, we actually create a mathematical vector that represents that character based on the way that they're described in the context of a work and their dialogue. and we can actually create a description of what that character looks like. We create a picture of what that character looks like and how their voice sounds. We actually surface from our existing library of voice actor voices which voices we think would best represent that character when they speak, both for a narrator or for the characters themselves. If none of those are good, like Phil said, we can actually generate from scratch, design for your character, a voice based on that character as we see them unspoken. We
Wow.
really take a lot of that hard work out of finding exactly the right narrator for that character.
Yeah. And how did you find the first narrator for your books, Phil?
Do you mean
Was
how did I?
Was there like a particular style you're looking for, or how did that work?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no. So style is about maybe about 50% of it. I'd say the other 50% is just the basics. The age, the gender, if there's a particular dialect, but then add style on top of that. And so style is something we have about 300 voice actor voices on the network. And so a whole wide variety of different styles. The descriptions allow you to go and search and find the right style. But if you do need to generate a custom voice that's going to be designed around your character, you can just change the prompt to give it a style. And you can get it. The prompt actually works really well and responds very favorably to a kind of dramatic description, right?
Yeah.
So you can do like, this scary, screechy witch in a woods on a windy day, right? And so the models will come back with something that pretty darn good, and so it does really really well in generating these really unique one of a kind voices.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Style's half of it, I think. The style that you're looking for.
So with spoken, the actual when you've got your books narrated and they're uploaded to your platform, it's actually a place where your readers or your listeners can buy the books and download them. So it's a platform for buying them as well. So how does that work compared to the other platforms like Audible, for example?
So this was one of our biggest takeaways after the Author Nation event, right? Realizing that every single person that we were trying to bring into the network as an author creator, if they're at the top of their game, they're entrepreneurs, right? They're managing a portfolio of their products or their creative work, right? And they're trying to find the best, least effort, highest payout opportunity for placement of their work and managing all these different revenue streams and so on. So when we went into Author Nation, we had a vision for Spoken of a simple, what's called the Spoken affinity model, which is, give me 1 second. We're going to add this. I'm going to blow my nose. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Keep mute for 1 second. These morning shows.
Yeah.
So going into the Author Nation event, we had a very specific vision for what the payment model would look like on Spoken. It's all you can eat subscription model we call the affinity model, kind of like Spotify, where all the listeners bring some subscription revenue. It's split in a way that supports our business, but also the authors, and then it's divvied up based on some kind of metric across all of the users. We looked at that and we said, I don't know if we like the Taylor Swift approach where the most engaging or highest traffic user takes the dragon's hoard of revenue split from the other creators. We flipped it upside down, and with the affinity model, what we created is actually a proportional distribution of a given listener's revenue subscription only to the creators, the authors that they're spending their time listening to. So it sort of removes that vacuuming of cash to the most engaging user on the network. We brought that to the event, and we learned a bunch. The way that it was very disruptive. It's not how these entrepreneurs operate today. They have their own storefronts, they have mailing lists, they have their own sort of locked in business model arrangements with other distribution services. Um, they really were after was direct sales. And we came back from Author Nation and we sat down, we put our heads together like, how do we incorporate something that can give people more flexibility and give them what they want? And we actually uh, came up with a concept called the unified streaming network. And this is actually, we think, is going to be very, very disruptive. So an author actually has access to three different sort of categories of monetization. The first being entirely free. So for everyone in the future, once we go live with V1 of our product in the spring, uh, there will be no barrier to entry. Anyone can join and stream content on Spoken. Um, at the second part of that sort of unified streaming network is the subscription model, the Spoken Affinity model. But then the third is also direct sales, and we can support those outside of the network on a author's storefront where a user can purchase a product directly from their store and they'll be able to listen to it on Spoken. Or a user can discover that content and purchase it in the Spoken network. So all three of these pieces of content, these categories of content, will be available in the Spoken network right next to each other. And we imagine the enterprising author is going to be the person who perfectly tweaks and balances their sort of blend of free content to show up in discovery and be, have something for everyone, whether it's a first chapter of a book or the first book in an epic series. Well, they'll put some of their shorter form work, some of their like high quality shorter form stuff into that Spoken Affinity pool, so they can generate passive revenue off of their quality stuff. And then of course they'll have their sort of direct sales, right, for those longer sagas, those things that they're a little more passionate about. And we've created a very, very favorable sort of revenue share that's pretty ridiculously disruptive based on what else is out there right now.
Right. Okay. So really, this is for people who are just starting out with self-publishing as well, because the way it is going to work is it's not going to be those people get no money because it's being split amongst the bigger creators. It's actually the people that are listening to their work is what's funding them. So these new authors, the more marketing they do to get the listeners, then the more money they can make as well.
100%. Yeah. One of the, my little origin story there is, I'm not the most talented writer in the world. I'm a visual storyteller, but I'm also one of those illiterate millennials who spends a lot of time consuming the kind of content on Reddit and Wattpad into the wee hours of the morning, where you look around and there are people that are incredibly talented, right? There's so much. There's No Sleep, favorite little horror subreddit. That makes sound like a broken record every time I talk to somebody about this, but there are 18 million users in No Sleep. And if you just use the 90/10, about 2 million of those are probably people who contribute. And you look at their profiles, you read their stuff and you look at their profiles and you see they don't have a website. They don't have an Audible account. They don't have a Kobo or a Kindle, unlimited account. These are people that just write because they write. And we looked at that and we said, I wonder if we can give them access to audio. You go in the comments and you see people like, hey, is there an audio version of this? Can I put it on YouTube? Whatever. And you realize, oh, this is who this is for also. These people who are insanely talented, who want the lowest barrier to entry to create and build their brand for themselves. They're welcome to come to Spoken too. And because of the nature and the cost and economics of how it all works, we think the short form is going to be huge. So, if you're just starting out and you have a shoebox under your bed full of 35 short stories and you never had an outlet for them before, you can bring them to Spoken and you can make them all free. You can build your brand that way. You can dump half of them into this, the Spoken Affinity subscription model. And maybe one day you'll realize, wow, I'm leaving money on the table as an author discovering, my journey. I'm going to throw a few of these behind a direct sale opportunity. And once again, manage that mix of the three options, and build your career that way. Get your first steps in as a big time self-published indie author.
Yeah, amazing. Looking forward to seeing this like really kick off the ground. We should definitely get a demo in to so we can see it a bit more visually. Like a lot of people that I work with, obviously they're publishing on Amazon if they're self-published. How would it work? Say, for example, you've got a book and it is already on Audible and it's published with Amazon. Is there any restrictions on publishing in both places?
Well, so Spoken doesn't apply any restrictions at all. It's pretty simple on Spoken. You retain all the rights to your work. You just have to attest that you have the right to publish the audio of that work on Spoken. And so it really comes down to what the other networks may constrain in that regard. But we don't take any rights. And if for whatever reason you need to take your work and have it on a different network, and they require that it not be elsewhere, you can certainly remove the work from Spoken at any time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And the last one was so the first part of the Spoken software is doing the AI narration. Can you use that narration on other platforms, or are you creating it specifically for the Spoken platform?
Yeah, so that's what we call the take it with you option.
Yeah.
And so we haven't built that out just yet. We're still kind of building our network of enthusiasts, both authors and listeners, and certainly that streaming and the monetization of that streaming network is what becomes central to the value proposition to authors. But having said that, we do take a lot of pride in the quality of the output of the work, and can imagine that authors are going to want to take that work with them and put it elsewhere. And so we'll add the feature of take it with you at some point, probably with the V1 in the spring. It will be very likely there will very likely be a charge for that. We haven't determined exactly what that is yet, but yeah, that's the take it with you feature, and it'll be there.
Cool. One of our just one little piece of color commentary there that slides nicely into a sort of larger piece of the Spoken puzzle, and that is, we really want to be easy to work with, a really great tool for these entrepreneurs or these people discovering their first steps in their writing journey. And we want to, it's why we built the revenue model the way we did. It's why we built considerations and features into the studio experience, right? Giving as much versatility and while still being easy to use. And this take it with you is another example of, we listen to everything that we're learning from these entrepreneurs, and we're saying, yes, this is something that you want. We'll figure out how to put it in, right? We just want to be right alongside everyone in the community to make it as easy as possible and check as many boxes of needs as we can.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I'm really excited to see where this goes. We'll definitely have to get you back on, as I mentioned, for like a video, more of a visual share, so we can see exactly how it works, because I think it's going to really disrupt the industry, as you mentioned.
Oh, we would love to join it. Again, we have poured a lot of time and energy and blood and sweat and tears into making very pretty little slides and user experience bells and whistles. So,
yeah, that'd be really good. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Usually, when we end these shows, I ask people a book they recommend everyone should be reading. But I thought, Phil, seeing as you've also got your own books as well, it'd be a good opportunity to hear a bit about your books and whether you recommend people read them.
My debut novel has been completed 18 times, and I've been rejected by 100 agents and counting so far. And so that particular work is still unpublished. And it turns out I may be creating a publishing platform to publish my own dang work. So that may be the whole reason behind all of this that I didn't quite realize at the time. Yeah. But as far as my other works go, I've got my personal website, drphilmarshall.com, where I have a couple of essays, but my other works, Kill Your Darlings, Welcome to the Audioverse, those are on Spoken. And in fact, Welcome to the Audioverse is a fun little 4-minute story that really kind of I think introduces people to the power of the audio platform and the multi-character, multi-voice feature really quite well. But if you want to go listen to Kill Your Darlings, it is the very first version of Spoken that was used to deploy that. I'm now going to be going back through and using different voices that are designed around those characters better to redo that. And that, by the way, just since you asked, is one of the great benefits of Spoken, is that if you want to tweak a single passage, or you want to change one character, or you want to, add in another installment serially, just go and just do it. It'll take a few seconds, and then your work all of a sudden is just now fresh and new, and everybody now listening to it will automatically get the latest version. So these works, they don't have to be done. If you find improvements that you want to make over time, if you want to tweak this, that, maybe people fall off in this part of the story and you need to kind of really, pump that part up a bit or rip it out, then you can just do that and just push live and it'll be done. So as far as my works go, though, those are the ones that are on Spoken. And so go to spoken.press today and listen to Dr. Phil Marshall's works.
Well, brilliant. Thanks, Andrew and Phil, for coming on. I'm looking forward to doing the visual presentation. I think that's really great, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, Teddy, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but I'm not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but I'm not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1.